This is a re-upload of a video from last year. While the content was good, I was still very much learning how to film and edit. As such, I was not happy with the video. So this is the re-edited version, which I am happier with and hope that you enjoy a little bit more too.
Hi witches, so today I wanted to do a video on kind of like a beginner witch toolkit. I've seen a lot of these around on YouTube and quite a lot of them seem to suggest things that I really disagree with, so I wanted to do my own take on it and the things that I would encourage beginners to try and get a hold of when they're at the start of their practice. These are all things which are low cost, easy to find, and that kind of thing. So I've chosen 10 things which I would suggest to beginner witches to have in their toolkit. The first thing that I would suggest is super duper versatile, and that is Tealight candles. So Tealight candles, you can use them as spell candles, you can anoint them, you can dress them with herbs, you can do all sorts of things with them. And you can even just burn them as just like a bit of an offering to ancestors, guides, guardians, all that kind of thing. And you can dress them up. So I'm going to show you an example of one that has been dressed. This is one which I actually purchased like this. But you can definitely do it yourself. It's got glitter, herbs, crystals, so you can do that on your own as well. And you can get those for really cheap. You can get them from most supermarkets. I think I remembered hearing someone said the absolute cheapest place to get them from is IKEA. I got mine from Dusk because I wanted the little plastic cups so then I can remake them. Fire safety thing, if you're getting the tea light candles in the metal cups, just keep a close eye on them because I find the metal ones get really hot, and I have set fire to my altar because the metal gets so hot they've left like a scorch mark on there. So as always with candles, make sure you're burning them on something which is not going to leave a mark. So like even on my altar back here, I have like a little wooden plate that I burn things on. You might like to use like a glass plate. It's up to you, but just make sure it's not straight on the surface. Otherwise it can leave a scorch mark and we don't want that. So the next thing that I would suggest is 1 or 2 large pillar candles. So I've got a couple here just to show you. You can buy these really easily from most dollar stores. IKEA sell them. A lot of times they are scented. Now scented candles are not a bad thing. Some witches prefer not to buy scented candles, but it's just personal preference. Both of these are scented. This one was made by a wonderful coven sister of mine, and I don't know what it smells like, but it smells amazing. This one was made by me. It smells like musk lollies. I would still use it. So the way that you can make it your own then is you can carve symbols into it, you can carve sigils into it, you can put oil on it, you can then roll it in herbs, you can do all sorts of things with it to really make it your own. But yeah, large pillar candles, these are really good as working candles. So that one candle that you always light for all of your workings, it's good for if you want to light a candle to a specific deity so that you've got that candle to always work with. You can do so much with them, but large pillar candles is another suggestion. Now the next one is one that you probably already have in your kitchen, and that is salt and pepper. Now salt and pepper are really versatile, so you're probably thinking, okay, salt, I understand, I've heard I can use that to stop negativity from coming in, I can use it for banishing, I can use it for protection, but pepper is also good for similar sorts of things. So pepper is really good if you're needing to do things like banishing. You can also actually use the berries. You can make like shaker jars and things like, so you can make like a rattle with them. So pepper is also quite handy to have. So I like having it in the whole pepper or the pepper berries, but it's just personal preference. Likewise with salt, there's a lot of ethical considerations. This is pink Himalayan salt. I actually didn't buy this. It was in a spice rack that I got. I actually try not to buy pink Himalayan salt because there's a lot of ethical concerns around the way that they mine it. So you might prefer to buy sea salt. I think that buying salt locally is a really good idea if you can. So my number one preference is Murray River sea salt because the Murray River in Australia has a salinity problem. So by you buying the sea salt from it or the river salt from it, you're actually helping that. So buy local salt where you can. I know that there are people which when they buy like Celtic sea salt and things like that, but just really consider the ethical implications. I think that's really important as a witch to think about where your supplies are coming from. And the next thing that I would suggest for beginner witches is a few herbs, and I've picked these very specifically. So the first one is bay leaves. So bay leaves you can get in the supermarket. They're really cheap. Bay leaves are good because you can actually, with like a marker, you can write down words on them. You can write sigils on them. You can then burn them in a cauldron. You can use them in like grids. Like if you want to do like a bit of a crystal grid, you can add bay leaves in around that as well. So bay leaves are super versatile and really cheap. You might even already have them. The next one is rosemary. This is dried rosemary from a supermarket. Having said that, rosemary grows literally everywhere. So you can go wild harvesting that as well. Like you don't need to go purchase it. You can just walk around your local area and it's probably in some publicly accessible place like a library or something like that. Yeah, it's literally everywhere. So rosemary is another good one to have. Rosemary has so many different associations, and a lot of people actually say that you can replace any herb with rosemary. Not everyone believes this, but it is extremely versatile. So rosemary is one that every single witch should have. Now the next one is cinnamon sticks, or cassia sticks as they are also known. There is a slight difference, but you can use them for similar sorts of things. So it's okay if you have cinnamon or if you have cassia sticks. Most times if you buy cinnamon, it's actually cassia anyway. So the reason I prefer the sticks, which are a little bit harder to get a hold of, but I still got this from a supermarket, is because you can they're actually really nice to put in working. So you can use them in like spell jars and things like that, rather than just like the powdered cinnamon. I mean, you can use powdered cinnamon as well. I just prefer the sticks. So I think the sticks are more versatile in that sense. Now the next one is fiery, and that is a long lighter. So the reason that I suggest long lighters is these are really good for candles, so that you don't accidentally burn your fingers. I find with fake nails, I'm always burning my fingers if I have like those little lighters. They're also really good if you have candles in glass jars that like there is no way I could get my hand in there and light that. So you really need one of these to be able to light that. Now these are affordable. They're not the cheapest. They're not as cheap as those little lighters. Because I'm eco-conscious, I prefer to try and get the refillable ones, but they're not always easy to find. So this is a refillable one. However, if you are eco-conscious and you have a little bit more money to spend, I would suggest the USB rechargeable lighter from Dusk. So this is called a laser lighter. I showed it in my May favorites video. And what it is it's not actually a flame. It's like a little taser thing. And so this will light candles. I don't know that it will light incense. So I have both. This I use for candles. I tend to use the yellow one for incense and things like that. But yeah, a long lighter is really, really handy, particularly for lighting candles. And also, like if you're trying to burn something in a cauldron and you need a lot of fire, like you're gonna burn your hands. You're gonna set your hands on fire if you try and use like the little lighters. So I find these big like barbecue lighters, I think they're sometimes called. Those are really handy and really versatile. Now the next thing that I would suggest is mini little cork bottles. So I got these from an Australian shop called Kmart, but you can get them from dollar stores, craft stores, all sorts of places. And basically I like these because you can use these as little spell bottles. I find that if I'm making spell bottles, I prefer them to be smaller. I have quite a few which I have received in the past, which have been pre-made and they're around this size. I've also got some which I've made myself. So these ones are actually plastic, which I didn't realize when I purchased them. It's probably better to get the glass ones, particularly if you're intending on burying it or using essential oils and things like that in them, just because plastic and oils, they do not like each other, whereas glass is a much better choice for that. So sometimes oils can actually break down plastic. So I prefer the glass ones, but these are really handy to have just as little like spell bottles, and you can even use them as decoration. Like I've got some where they're just little crystals in there. So yeah, I find these really helpful and handy to have. The next thing that I would suggest is coins. So this is a solid silver coin with the Athenian owl on it. However, you can just use your regular coins that you have in your wallet. These are really good for money and abundance and prosperity workings because it uses the idea that like attracts like. So if you kind of like enchant your money, it's encouraging more of it to come. And so coins are really good to have. You can even use foreign coins, although some believe that if you're using foreign coins, you're wanting more of them to come to you. So that could be good if you are like selling things online and you want people to be buying things in all sorts of different currencies, but you can just use your coins in your country as well. You can even use coins that aren't legal tender anymore. Like I remember when I was younger, I had a whole bunch of like old shillings and pennies and things like that my grandparents had collected. Now I tend to use silver just because I also like to incorporate the mineral magic of silver, but you can also just use regular coins. The next thing that I would suggest, it's probably no surprise, which is small glass jars. So small glass jars are really good for storing in any herbs which you end up collecting or purchasing. They're really good for making like shaker jars. They're good for like spell bottles. They're good for all sorts of things. I like to keep jars in an assortment of sizes. So I've got some which are like this, some which are a bit smaller, like this, some which are bigger. Like it just really depends. I even have these really big like coffee jars, which I find the perfect size for if I need to put crystals in salt. That way I can put a lot of them in there and I can fill it with salt. Uses up all my salt, but it works. So yeah, glass jars in assorted sizes is another suggestion. And it's good because they don't cost you anything. You'd otherwise be throwing them into the recyclings. This way you just clean them out, take off the labels, and you've got them. If you have trouble getting off the labels, there's a couple of things I suggest. One is hot soapy water. And the other one is steel wool. You actually scrub it off. Also, if you've got that sticky residue on there, you can get that off with oil. I like to use olive oil, but some people use eucalyptus oil. It's really up to you. Any kind of oil will break down that sticky residue on there. So yeah, hot soapy water, steel wool, and oil should get them nice and clean and perfect. The next thing that I would suggest is incense sticks and essential oils, or either or. So the reason that I suggest incense sticks is these are good for if you're wanting to incorporate the element of air into your workings. They also just make a space smell really nice, and they make really good offerings to like deities, gods, guides, ancestors, all of that kind of thing. There's certain scents that I like to work with. Frankincense is usually a go-to. I think this is frankincense. But things like even like myrrh, it's really up to you what you choose to use. I would, however, stay away from anything which is like artificially scented. So, you know, anything which doesn't seem like it would be a natural thing, like baby powder or like raspberry or something like that. I would stick to the more kind of traditional scents, if that makes sense. There are also a lot of really good blends which they have created, which are meant specifically for like devotional workings. Like I've got some which are specifically for working with the full moon. I've got a lot of different incense, but it's really up to you and what you like the smell of, because if you don't like the smell of it, then you know, there's no point in using it. The other thing is you can use incense, which perhaps doesn't smell so nice, as a way of banishing. So that's generally something that's it's a bit of an association of, if it smells sweet, it'll bring things in. If it smells bad, it'll banish things. So things like dragon's blood are usually quite good for banishing. I personally don't particularly like the smell of dragon's blood, so if I do use it, I use the one that's combined with nag champa, but it's totally up to you. If you are not able to burn things, then an essential oil in a diffuser is also a really good choice. You can get those water diffusers really, really cheap. If you don't have one of those, you can even use like, the oil burners. So an oil burner like this. You can also use these. So they've got like, you put your candle in the bottom, you put the water and oil in the top. That also works. The other thing to mention is if you are using oils, make sure that they are essential oils, particularly if there's something that you're inhaling. In Australia, most places are pretty good. If it says it's an essential oil, it will be. I know that's not the case in other countries around the world. So if you're unsure, do a little bit of research into the company, look up reviews online, things like that, just to make sure that they are actually essential oils and they haven't got fragrance oils in them, purely because fragrance oils can irritate your nose and things like that. Especially also if you have pets or children sharing the same space with you, it's probably best not to use any kind of scents, whether that's essential oils or incense, because it can really irritate them. And the last thing that I want to suggest is a ebook service. So hear me out. So when you are first getting into witchcraft, there is so much information out there, and it's always a bit hard to understand what is good information and what is kind of not very reliable information. So what I tend to do, aside from the fact that I'm a voracious reader, is I like to use ebook services because I just do not have the space to store all of those books. And the other thing is that oftentimes I'll read books and I don't actually come back to them. So keeping them, it's not a good use of space, and it's not a good use of my money either. So ebook services like Scribd or Kindle Unlimited are good because you have a huge amount of books that you can read for the price of the subscription that month. So for example, I have Scribd, which I think is something like $8.99 American. So that's quite affordable even when you convert it to Australian dollars. And with Scribd, I have unlimited access to their entire selection of ebooks and audiobooks. They do restrict you on audiobooks towards the end of the month, but there's always audiobooks that you can listen to even when they've restricted you. So Kindle Unlimited, it's also good. There's less books that you can read. However, they often have like free trials, or I think earlier this year it was 3 months for like $1. So things like that are really good as well, just so that you can find out lots of information, read lots of books without spending lots of money. So those are the things that I would include in my Beginner Witch Toolkit. So these are my suggestions to all of the beginners out there that aren't sure what they should buy, what they should hold off from buying, and all of that kind of thing. So I hope that you found this helpful. Would you include other things in your Beginner Witch Toolkit? What advice would you give to beginner witches? And I hope that you are having a wonderful day. I'll see you next time. Bye.